Lions Rock Productions.
This is Jay Moore.
This is Greg Cruz.
This is Bryce Vine.
This is Dexter from The Offspring.
This is Nathan
This
East.
is Sebastian Younger.
This is Daryl Ames.
This is Stuart Copeland.
This is Mick Gillette.
This is Andy Summers.
This is Dr. Bob Greenberg.
This is Gabby Reese.
This is Rob Bell.
Hey, this is John Leon Guerrero.
Hey, and this is Pete A. Turner.
And now, the Break It Down Show with John Leon Guerrero and Pete A. Turner.
Hey, this is Pete A. Turner.
This is Mike Lipari.
And we have a wonderful album fight today, something that I have had a great time doing. I'm looking forward to you guys, your notes and everything else, but let's just go ahead and get this started. So today we've got Joy Division's Closer, and we have Depeche Mode Violator. Mike?
I'm so looking forward to these albums myself. We have Phil ready to kick us off with our fighter announcement.
In the red corner, hailing from Salford, England, with their second and final studio album, we have the post-punk sounds of Joy Division and their 1990 album, Closer. And facing them in the blue corner, from the streets of Basildon, England, with their seventh studio album that propelled them into international stardom, we have Depeche Mode and their 1990 album, Violator. Now, let's throw it over to Richard Lackey and get his patent-pending pre-fight analysis. Richard.
I know we all love a good heavyweight fight like John versus Paul, but I personally find fights like this to be more interesting because I hope we can introduce listeners to something new, or at least new to them. Plus, it's very interesting to see an influential band in a genre versus a band further along in the evolution of that genre. We start with 1980's Closer by Manchester post-punk band Joy Division. When you listen to them, you'll hear the early stages of what would become the new wave movement of the 1980s, and later turn into kind of the electronic music that we understand today. Full disclosure, Joy Division is a bit more of an acquired taste than Depeche Mode. Personally, I dig them, and I love hearing their influence today in bands like She Wants Revenge, Block Party, and Kaiser Chiefs. This was the second and, sadly, final album released just 2 months after the tragic suicide of lead singer Ian Curtis in May of 1980. It's up against the seventh studio album from Depeche Mode, Violator, from 1990, 10 years after Closer. And with this album, we get a fight I always enjoy, the hugely popular versus the critical darling. Which one will win over our judges this week? Let's turn to our patent-pending analytical model to see. On the streaming popularity numbers, each album took a decisive win apiece. In things like album sales, Violator wins by like tenfold. But it's when you see the critical numbers that the fight really takes shape and Closer pulls away. While Violator does have a very favorable reviews with an average of 4.4 out of 5, Closer does something that only one other album has done in the history of album fights. It scored an average of 5 out of 5 reviews. That's right, every review I could find had it a perfect score, 5 out of 5, 10 out of 10, 4 out of 4, whatever. The only other album to do that was Pet Sounds by the Beach Boys. And looking at everything combined, I think we'll get a 6-3 win for Closer based solely on the numbers. My prediction, though, I think will be a little bit closer, no pun intended, to 5-4 for Closer. I think the judges may lean a little into the more popular of the two albums, but I think the quality of Closer will finish it off for a tight but very enjoyable win. Back to you.
All right. Well, it sounds like Richard is making a bold but close prediction. And, he's gotten so good at these things. He really gets down to the razor's edge. So I'm interested to see how we do. Any thoughts going in, Mike?
I listened to both of these albums. I really dug listening to both these albums. Hadn't listened to either for quite a while. And this was a really tough fight. Richard is absolutely right. Very close. No pun intended. Really love Closer. Great album, and Joy Division could have done so much more.
I know that we had the same kind of musical vocabulary growing up, but how on Joy Division were you in high school?
In high school, I discovered Joy Division late. I discovered Joy Division after New Order. I think a lot of people did. It really wasn't until late high school, early college that I got much more into Joy Division and just heard kind of that raw talent. disappointing in where it could have gone, but still you can see in a lot of songs where it leads into what New Order was.
What about you, Todd?
Yeah, hi. For Closer, what I put in my notes is that this is the album that my friends with 10 times better musical taste than I had listened to, while I was listening to Pink Floyd and Rush, So, I had friends who were listening to this and they would put this on, and I was like, yeah, whatever. I'm talking about Joy Division, obviously. This was, the kind of stuff so I was exposed to it. I never really took. And then I heard the Peel Sessions album, and then I was like, okay, Joy Division is like a kick-ass band. Like, it all clicked for me. And then I saw that movie 24-Hour Party People. Have you seen that? Yeah. And so, that kind of like brought me up to speed on the whole Manchester scene, the whole thing. So I had a better context for them. And then I was like, the penny dropped, and I was like a super fan from that point.
Yeah, and of course, Todd's been a judge on the show before. I didn't really introduce him yet, but you guys know that he knows his stuff. He's steeped in the Tower Records family as well. So
yeah,
this is going to be awesome to do this. I really am looking forward to it. I'll just give my little background. Yeah, I was big on Depeche Mode. I was early on those guys in terms of being a California kid, and I owned a Joy Division shirt before I knew how cool it was. So I got a pass a little bit, but like no one else knew enough to go, cool, Joy Division, and I knew enough to know not to say anything. Don't bait it, just wear it. So,
yeah, I talked to one of my daughter's friends, and he was familiar with the album covers, and the T-shirts from like, I don't know, maybe Urban Outfitters or something, but not so much the music.
Yeah, right. Yeah, as long as you got the shirt. My daughter's got a Fishbone shirt, and I said, you just wear this thing and don't say anything else. You're already cool by having it on. Don't blow it by confirming anybody's doubts. So with that said, I think we should kick this thing off. Round 1, Atrocity Exhibition versus World in My Eyes. Todd, go ahead and start us off for round 1.
Okay, sounds good. This is interesting, right? They're both like kind of welcome to the album songs. One of them's like, Depeche Mode's like, let me take you on a trip. And Joy Division's like, this is the way, step inside. So they're both kind of consciously, introducing the album. And it's like, harkens back to the day when there were albums, right? And they, made them and they were sequenced and whatever. So that's kind of cool. So you already know you're like in the past. I didn't like the production on the Joy Division song on Atrocity Exhibition, right? It was very muddy. I thought it was interesting. I was reading how the bassist and guitarist swapped their instruments and stuff, but they went in, and I think the production just gums up like the whole song and makes it less listenable, right? Even though it's still definitely a Joy Division song. And then World in My Eyes is like a great song. It's kind of sensual. It's kind of horny, right? And there's like, things about going around the world or whatever, which I recommend you not look up on Urban Dictionary. And, so I gave this one to Depeche Mode 10-9.
10-9, wow. How about you, Mike? What'd you do?
Atrocity Exhibition is a strong start to an album that's, I called this not an easy listen. Because it's not. It's very deep and it's very dark, and you've got to be in a mood for Joy Division in general, but this album specifically. Well, World in My Eyes is a pleasant start to an album that's generally a pleasant listen, very upbeat in general. Joy Division brings a tightness to the song that wasn't real apparent in their earlier albums. You can hear a lot of them moving into some more experimental sounds. I also picked up on the fact that Peter Hook and Bernard Sumner swapped instruments, which makes things sound a little bit different than they typically sound. But I also read an interview with Peter Hook where he was really pissed about what the producer Martin Hannett did with the mix. He said he pretty much buried his guitar, so he wasn't real happy with the production. So I get that. It's not the best produced song on the album. But I think overall, it just ekes out a win in my eyes anyways over Depeche Mode. I gave this one to Joy Division 10-9 for Depeche.
All right, my round 1, Atrocity Exhibition. The song it missed me, and for me, it sounded like it was poorly mixed. And I have to say those words out loud because Wes maybe's listening, so I'm learning from what he's teaching me. And I agree with you. If Peter Hook thinks it sucked in terms of the mix and his guitar, And you thought so, Mike? I'm going to agree. I want this song just to be a little bit better. The lyrics get a little repetitive. Depeche Mode's lyrics weren't terribly great too, so if it's going to go to something else, it's going to go to musicianship and mix. And I think World of My Eyes, where it really takes off, like the song puts me in a vibe. Like I feel like I'm in a carriage and I'm going around town with Dave as he's describing everything. But it's the drumming and the percussion and the depth in that. The song is dancey. There's a good groove in there. The hooks are good. Of course, Dave does his job. There's just a lot of things going on. You can listen to this song 3 or 4 times and continue to pick out new sounds and new textures in it. It's just a really thick song. For me, it's a better experience. I went Depeche Mode 10-9 in round 1. Round 2, Sweetest Perfection versus Isolation. What did you think, Mike?
Well, Sweetest Perfection is, to me, an average Depeche Mode song. It's a great number 2 on an album. The lyrics aren't particularly original. It's got that kind of gloomy mood that you heard a lot more in earlier Depeche Mode songs, earlier entries in their catalog. Then you compare it to Isolation. Isolation is really a great song. It's one of my favorites in the Joy Division catalog. The longing you hear in Ian Curtis's voice is just, it's palpable. Sometimes he sounds a little flat in other songs, but in this song, he really proves he has the vocal chops that I don't know that he got a lot of credit for. When I looked at these albums initially, I thought there's probably not going to be a knockdown. This one was close for me, just because The Sweetest Perfection is really not a great Depeche Mode song, but I don't think that it's bad enough in comparison to put Depeche Mode on the knee, but I certainly clearly gave this one to Joy Division 10-9.
All right, well, my round 2, I had Sweetest Perfection. The things that really stood out for me was it's a hit, first off. Let's understand that. In Depeche Mode, this is a strong album for them in Violator. So they really nice job of using stereo, and the music kind of just crawls through your head side to side. It's not jarring like a lot of earlier fading or panning back and forth of channels. I did not like Dave's tremolo, and I know that's his voice and everything else, but it seemed a little, I don't know, it seemed a little much. I did like the way they put the song together, though. Like there's that blade sharpening kind of swinging sound, and there's some fear in there. And then right around 2 minutes 10 seconds, the song changes. And there's a haunting bass harmony that goes in, unless you're listening to it. Like, I don't know that I'd ever heard it before, but it's just haunting visibly right there, kind of lurking. And then the Terminator-like music that comes out of this song kind of harkens back to that era, and actually Joy Division in that case. And so half the song, you've got a really darker vibe, and I really like that part. The character in the song is taken completely. The song is complex, but it's not. It's an A. The problem is Isolation is better. And this is more what we want to hear. And this was a really hard round for me. Ian's voice, it's not euphonious like you'd want it to be, but he's also got the right voice for what these guys do. And the band, Jesus Christ, that band is so good. Joy Division, New Order, whichever one it is, they really had a lot of legs in what they were doing. So as Ian's literally creating his Suicide album, these guys are making incredible sounds to back it up. And you wonder how dialed in they were to his impending demise. I mean, before the album even gets released, he's gone. You know, they're planning a tour, and he's planning the end and singing openly about it. It's crazy. So for me, this is a very powerful 10-9 for Joy Division. Todd, what did you do?
Yeah, I think both of you covered that really well. A lot of the stuff I wanted to say. You know, Sweetest Perfection is kind of one of those songs. It's like, is it about drugs or is it about a girl? You know, like Golden Brown. You know, so it's like whatever it is, it's like self-destructive. You know, is drawing you towards it. You know, which is kind of a theme in this album. It's like how your urges are going to lead to bad things, right? Yeah. Or consequences. One thing in Sweetest Perfection, it kind of had those late 80s reverb drums that I don't like. You know, it kind of dates it, you know, those kind of gated reverb thing. And the Joy Division song Isolation, even though I don't like songs where the chorus is just the title over and over, it gets me upset. But this is really good. You know, I made in my notes, I wrote New Order ? You know, it's just, it sounds modern. This is one of their later songs. You could almost say closer is like 2 albums, like a batch of songs from 79, a batch of songs from 80, like, right up to the end of Ian. And this is one of the later ones. And it turns out I like all those a lot better. Also, it has an amazing lyric. I'm ashamed of the things I've been put through. That's just such a, like, that's not like pop,
Right.
It's just so messed up. That really stuck out with me. So I gave this to Joy Division 10-9.
I was also struck in his lyric too, where he talks about shame and all these other feelings, but he never asks to be forgiven. He just absorbs all of it, and you're like, all you got to do is say, forgive me, and everybody's going to be like, yeah, dude, it's all right. But he really is isolated. Like, he can't see his way out to anything else. It's incredible. The lyric's powerful.
Yeah, exactly. And that is a theme with these later songs too, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
just
yeah.
Being trapped, like trapped in a yard, trapped in shame, trapped in depression, trapped in your last day. It's just, it's really, like the song Isolated,
Yeah, all the songs that were the 1980 songs are definitely darker.
Well, let's do round 3. We've got Passover versus Personal Jesus. I love it when this happens. 2 religious songs. They're alluding to a religious kind of theme. And who'd ever thunk it? These bands never thought this up. So Passover is powerful. Here's what matters for me. When I was reading through the lyric, and the lyric and the singing really for Joy Division really matters a lot. The 5th line of each verse is a question. So the first one is this the role you wanted to live? Okay, that's heavy. And the next one is, can I go with this train of events? Can I go on? Is this the gift I wanted to give? So here's a guy who's taking inventory. He's looking at his wife, soon-to-be ex-wife, saying, is this the role you wanted? Can I even do any more of this? Is this what I wanted to be? And it's such a heavy personal inventory. And, and he uses the Passover, kind of way to talk about it. But really, those 3 questions for me were the big difference. And then in Personal Jesus, here's the thing. When Depeche Mode's a great pop band, and they sing about love, they're kind of like The Cult, but with synthesizers, where it's like, baby, 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 let's have sex, that kind of thing. So it's cool. I do like the lyric of lift up the receiver, I'll make you a believer, because that would make no sense to anybody born after, I'm going to say, 1995. But it's a strong pop song. Yeah. Johnny Cash has covered it. Sammy Hagar has covered it. Sammy Hagar loved it. He's like, it's got a great groove. It's got great hooks. It's got a great lyric. But no one really has taken it from him. It's just that Joy Division goes to a different place. So this for me is 10-9 Joy Division. Todd, how about you?
That's interesting. Yeah, so I gave this to Depeche Mode. I just think Personal Jesus is such a classic song, starting from the harmonics and guitar to the crazy slide, that you can't tell if it's a synthesizer or a guitar. It's great lyrics. It's kind of that great kind of frustration, of like sitting at home and hearing confessions and, that kind of thing. It's great. And then it kind of translates like this real simple, cool, blues riff over to like guitar and synth, which is a pretty good feat, I don't know if we're going to mention this, but this is what Priscilla Presley used to call Elvis Presley, was her personal Jesus, so there's like a weird Elvis connection there too. So, it's just like it's a perfectly crafted pop song, and so I have to give it its due that way. The, Joy Division one, I agree, Passover, it's really good. I love like the whispering behind the lyrics. I love the whole thing. It's kind of, suicide as a metaphor for being released from slavery, so there's like the Passover, thing that's like, metaphor for the whole thing. And if assuming that interpretation is true, kind of that lyric about leaving a mark on the door is like, it becomes really grim, it's like, is it lamb's blood or is it, your own blood or what is it? So
I pictured him hanging himself from the door. That's what I pictured.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but it's, Passover, there was the lamb's blood on the door, so you want to get the plague. And then it's like when he's talking about leaving a mark on the door somehow in a suicide or something, it's like, it's a terrifying thought, it's just like so dark and shocking when you get to that. So it's fantastic, but I still gave it to Depeche Mode, but barely.
Mike, what about you?
Yeah, I'm finding myself looking at my notes, agreeing with Todd a lot. I thought Passover was definitely a strong song, and Joy Division doesn't deliver any weak songs on this album. So I'll say that once and probably repeat it again. It's well performed. I don't know that this is the best song on the album. I don't think it's close to the best song. Overall, it's got, it works well, but it's up against Personal Jesus, which is a catalog-defining song. I imagine Depeche Mode plays this at every single concert now. I called out Johnny Cash's kick-ass cover of it, but I also called out Depeche Mode's own cover of their own song, where they did an acoustic version of it, which is one of my favorite arrangements. And you can really get more into the lyrics when it's just the strumming of an acoustic guitar versus all of the instrumentation they put into it. But both versions are great. I can't give this one to Joy Division, even though it's a strong song. Personal Jesus is just a stronger song, 10-9, but not an overwhelming 10-9.
A very close round for you. Yeah, I found a lot of that where I'm like, gosh, I'm going to have to pick something. And so, I found something to lean on, but there were a lot of close rounds. And the fight in general appears to be really close so far. So let's go ahead and go into round 4. Todd, go ahead and give us your score.
So it's like both songs were, about religion to a certain degree. And then these are both songs about having an affair and sort of self-destruction associated with it, unpleasantness associated with it. And again, Depeche Mode's, there's pleasure and we're going to give into it. We're going to do this, is it drugs? Is it a woman? Who knows? It's quite good. I like that we may deserve it, but it will be worth it, So there's at least a little bit of joie de vivre underneath all that, and I love the juicy chords in the chorus. I don't know the progressions off the top of my head, but it's just really good. I like how it just goes out on those choruses, the Joy Division song Colony, it's very jagged. You can picture Ian Curtis dancing to it, in your head just because of how jerky it is. It's, I think it's on the same theme, but he's like, there's some things I have to do. I don't mean you harm, he can't even take pleasure in this,
Yeah.
So it's a little bit depressing. So I give it to Depeche Mode 10-9.
What about you, Mike? How did you have it?
This is another close round. 2 songs that are both excellent songs, not real catalog mainstays. I know Halo got a lot of airplay at a certain point. I noticed right away that Colony has such a great beat, and I had to call out Stephen Morris, the drummer from Joy Division, and then eventually New Order. The drumming in this throughout the album is impressive, but in this song in particular, I really was kind of pulled in by the drumming. And then there's that great distorted guitar from Bernard and that driving bass from Hook. I noticed Ian Curtis's singing was a bit low in the mix, and I'll come back to that later. Overall, a strong song, good song. I've always dug the lyrics from Halo, particularly the intro, the shackles on your feet like a halo in reverse.
Yeah.
That always just struck me as a really good hook to get you into the song. And Dave Gahan is not exactly it doesn't have the biggest range in the world, but this is a really good vocal performance from him, and I really enjoyed the harmonies from Gore throughout. I thought Halo maybe tries a little bit too hard, but when listening to these 2 tracks back to back, I just leaned in a little bit towards Depeche, and I think it really came back to the singing was just really too low in the mix to really catch everything he was singing without going and looking up the lyrics elsewhere for Joy Division. So I went Depeche Mode 10, Joy Division 9.
Oh, actually, if I could jump in a second on the range, I actually looked that up. So a site that listed the ranges of all these different singers put Ian Curtis at with a 2-octave range, and Dave Gahan is like a 3-octave range. They're both in the baritone range, like 2nd, 3rd octaves. But it's interesting. Neither of them have tremendous range.
Yeah, at least they don't display it in this point in their careers, right? Maybe they worked on a falsetto or something, but
yeah, true. It wasn't even until after this album that Dave Gahan actually started to expand in the upper range.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, it's one of the things that kind of kept them relevant was their ability to continue to find new territory to explore. I'll do my round 4 real quick here. Like you said, Todd, it's 2 failed relationships. One is we know we're going to fail going into it, and I like that. Like, but let's enjoy this. So, two of the lyrics that stood out for me was all of love's luxuries are here for you and me, and I think that's perfect. You know, just being able to have some hotel sex or whatever it is they had in mind. This is what they do, and Depeche Mode is great at it. This could easily be a Joy Division song, by the way. You know, just if Ian Curtis, you know, was in a good mood and happy ever and trying to be a little scandalous, but that just wasn't his thing. I think what we see in this song is Depeche Mode has more tools at their disposal. It's later in their career. Joy Division never really got that figured out, and they were also hobbled by the brilliance, but the incapacity of their lead singer, Ian Curtis. Colony, the first words I wrote were "Hello, Kraftwerk." This is where you get to hear Kraftwerk's enormous impact on all of modern music, and I'm such a big fan of those guys. I always want to shout them out. This is the limitation of Ian Curtis in this song. You know, like you said, Mike, the mix isn't great for his voice, and the lyrics are. There's times when he finds new ground with the depression and the suicidal urges, but this is being 23, depressed, and just not having enough to say. And in that case, I'm going to take the more fun relationship where we know this is going to be bad going in. We'll do it for as long as it's fun and get out. And with Ian, you just don't know what you're going to get, and it's darker, and I just don't care for that. So we agree with you guys. Depeche Mode 10-9. All right. Round 5, A Means to an Ends versus Waiting for the Night to Fall. Here's how I see A Means to an Ends. This song is it has all the bad elements of Joy Division in it. The music is a bit too raw. This is one of those earlier songs, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Curtis is too droning. You know, if this song was written a couple of years later by New Order, it's a way better song, and frankly sung better, you know, in a different register than his brooding baritone. You know, we've already had a lot of haunting, and this just isn't good haunting, and this isn't good despair. So what do we get from Waiting for the Night to Fall? Depeche Mode changes pace. Dave's affecting kind of his crooner thing that he likes to do. We're getting ready to switch into the latter half of the album, and I love the lyric of linking squinted with rose tinted, you know, and how you're kind of squinting into a rose tinted life because he didn't have any lenses. And this is way before the Seinfeld writers gave George 20/20 squint vision, you know, when he was picking off those raccoons. So just on the coolness and the vibe and the poppiness of this song, just being better than a miss by Joy Division. I went Depeche Mode 10-9. How did you do it, Todd?
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I like the rawness of the Joy Division song. You know, in my notes I put finally some driving rock and roll. You know, I like I put my trust in you refrain. Though I will admit I have no idea what the lyrics are about. I've gone through them, you know, a bunch of times. Who knows? World War II or being betrayed by a friend? Who the hell knows? You know. But I quite liked it. But yeah, I think Waiting for the Night is really good. This is like, you know, you're waiting for everyone to go to bed and everyone to go away so you can just go get, you know, properly fucked up, you know, and just not worry about anything and just shut off your mind and whatever, you know. There's this kind of thrumming underneath it that's like, you know, very impatient, which you know underscores the theme pretty well.
This episode of the Break It Down Show is brought to you by Lions Rock Productions.
That's us.
We publish, evaluate, and develop podcasts just like this one, consult others to build their own, and create associated content and content marketing strategies.
So if you're launching or expanding your social media presence, your business or your personal brand, or if you just want to take your media presence to the next level,
reach out to us on Twitter
at Pete A. Turner
or at JohnLG69
at the Break It Down Show.
There's 1,000 ways to get a hold of us.
Now enjoy the show.
Which you know underscores the theme pretty well. The lyrics, you know, it's interesting to see these lyrics. I'm guessing they're Martin's, you know, versus like I'm waiting for the night to fall where everything is bearable. It's so corny, but it works. It's like the corniest rhyme ever, but it's very sincere, you know. And it gets to the heart of the song. So Depeche Mode 10-9.
Mike, how did you have round 5?
Not the same as you guys. I'll start with Depeche. Waiting for the Night. I felt that the synths were very synthy. I'd like to hear Pete say that.
Synthy. I got to say it like Roger Rabbit. Synthy.
It's a beautiful ballad, but it loses out to the ballads on the rest of the album. I would say that this track is on the bottom third of Violator. Again, my opinion. The vocal performance saves the song from being just another Depeche song, but I don't even think it's as strong as Halo. It definitely has a great lead into the next song on the album, which we'll get to in the next round. And listening to this album sequentially, it does flow well, and I think it helps the song. But if you listen to it out of order, which I did, it doesn't even end well. As for the competition, A Means to an End, I think is a strong entry from Joy Division. It definitely shows Ian Curtis's state of mind. Most of the songs on here do, but this one to me really sounds like somebody who's kind of reaching the end of their road. I did read the lyrics a couple of times, Todd. I agree. It's not really clear, but reading through it a few times, I really kind of got that trust and betrayal, that he trusted somebody, says it a lot, but it feels like in the end, the trust was betrayed. The band, of course, is solid backup behind the words. And you can hear a little bit of New Order coming out in this song. You know, high bass, low guitar, solid timing. I gave this one to Joy Division 10-9.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and go into round 6. Mike, go ahead and lead us off. We've got Enjoy the Silence versus Heart and Soul.
Ooh, yeah. Heart and Soul is one of the longer tracks on Closer at just under 6 minutes. And it takes a full minute into the song before you get kind of an echoey singing. I think the mix really hurts Heart and Soul. I do like the song, but the instruments are very, very understated except for the drumming. The drumming is very loud. The singing and the instruments are very soft. It's not as lyrically complex as some of the other Joy Division songs. And they're going up against Enjoy the Silence. I mean, God. You really have to bring your A game against this song. Words like violence break the silence, come crashing into my little world. I mean, those are some strong lyrics coming from Martin Gore. All I ever wanted, all I ever needed is here in my arms. And that's a pop song. I mean, he must have known right after he wrote the last lyric that this was going to be a huge hit. I think this could quite possibly be Depeche Mode's best song, and I'm sure a lot of Depeche Mode fans would put it up there. Very well written, very well performed, not too techno. There's guitar in there, there's real instruments mixed into the synthesizers. This is an easy win for Depeche Mode, and really my biggest decision was whether Heart and Soul was strong enough to keep Joy Division on their feet. And after a lot of deliberation, I chose that Joy Division didn't stay on their feet. So I gave this one to Depeche Mode 10-8, knockdown.
Our first knockdown. Wow.
Not an easy call, but in the end, I think Enjoy the Silence is that much better than Heart and Soul.
All right. Well, I think you're fucking wrong. Let me do mine real quick, and then we'll go to Todd. Yeah. But this is where the strength of... So this is directly from my notes, and so I'm going to read this. This is where the strength of Violator started to dominate the weaker Closer, right? This is where I was in my head. This song is more pop. It's even getting a bit kitschy. Wait, hold on. There's some good dance grooves. This is sounding familiar. It's good work by the band, but this sounds like it drives me crazy, like by Fine Young Cannibals. And that song's from 1989, so I went and I listened, and I was like, oh my God. These are almost the same damn song, the same vibe, the same sounds. I'm like, oh no, so it was too emblematic for me of the genre, and I started to penalize. I penalized Depeche Mode for it. On the other side, Heart and Soul, right from the jump, you got the signature sounds that define what Joy Division and New Order what makes them special. I do think the kind of the cornball Vincent Price vocal effect is distracting, but they're also not doing a cover of a Fine Young Cannibal song. When we look for why Joy Division is important and why they're in the ring here, we can sit right here at this song and spend a minute and look at the inspiration that's coming out of an album that's out in '80. You got Brad Fidel's work as a musician doing soundtracks. He did the soundtrack for Terminator, and there's no doubt that he listened to Joy Division before he did that Terminator soundtrack. There's just no doubt. And then how about Jane's Addiction? That sex and my drugs and my rock and roll. That straight out of the Joy Division playbook. You know, obviously Perry likes drugs more than Ian Curtis likes being alive, but you know that it's the same vibe. The Cure, U2 is all over this song. I'd mentioned Daft Punk, but that's just obvious, right? So the one thing I will say though is that Temptation, that New Order does later, is the better version of this song. The singing is better, the musicianship is just tighter, and I think the world of New Order as a band. It's one of the things that makes Ian Curtis's work so special is he's got fantastic musicians behind him. And thankfully, you know, Ian gets the relief he needs, you know, before the album even comes out, and the band is freed from his, you know, his weakness. So this is a really powerful song for me, and I really enjoy Joy Division's version of it. So it's 10-9. Joy Division. What about you, Todd?
All right. I agree with you on this one, Pete. I think Heart and Soul is my favorite song on this album. You know, it's like 6 minutes, you know, so you're in for the long haul with this one. And, you know, just everything from that stuttering kind of trippy drumming puts you in kind of an alpha mode. And then that just the grinding, like you said, like sharpening a knife kind of guitar sound, you know, there's two of those, you know, so like one wasn't enough. And it's good. You know, it's funny. You're saying his singing style was like Vincent Price. I put Bing Crosby.
Okay.
He's like crooning, you know, he's got like crooning about nihilism, like picture Bing Crosby, like singing about, I don't know, Nietzsche or whatever, you know? And so that's sort of the vibe I got out of it. And I felt like the production was getting a little bit cleaner, you know, towards these later songs. And so this is my favorite song on the album, definitely.
Well, you know, I like to say I'm so Nietzsche, I'm Nietzsche. That's my big joke.
and then sorry.
No, go ahead. I'm just making a corny joke.
Yeah,
Keep going.
And then they enjoy the silence, you know, so he's been waiting for the night to fall. And now Martin and Dave are nodding off on smack, you know, so they're enjoying the silence. You know, but you know, what I like about this song is, you know, they keep it right in that zone of like pop, electronica, dance, kind of post-punk, you know, new wave. Like they keep it suspended right in that zone, like in the middle of all these different genres. And I don't know if that's by instinct or by you know, they have protractors and they plan it, but it's amazing how they're able to do that and just kind of take elements from each one and then combine it and make their own thing. So, you know, even though I'm kind of getting tired of that, you know, towards this end of the album, but it's interesting how they just kind of knock out these kind of riff-based synth stuff, you know?
Yeah, I think you're right. Like where I kind of penalized them for being emblematic, you're kind of saying they found a sweet spot. I definitely can appreciate that because Mike's right. It's a good song. And actually, I like it a lot. Just in this kooky format. And I'm like, well, I got to penalize you for sounding like Fine Young Cannibals. And the reason why I figured out it was Fine Young Cannibals is I could see those people hopping along the screen, like the blue and yellow, red. They're hopping. And then I finally figured it out. It's funny how the brain works like that.
Man, Pete, I never caught that. I never picked up on that before.
I got lucky to catch it, honestly.
I'm going to listen to that again.
I know. Now I've got to go back and listen to it too.
It's really similar. All right, let's do round 7, 24 hours versus Policy of Truth. I'll go ahead and start this off, and here's where we go. I saw New Order play last year at the Hollywood Bowl. Anybody should go watch these guys play. They're so good. They've been touring the same show for a long time, but they're a heritage act. They get to do that. Everything is tight. The musicianship is good, and the reason is because they're a great fucking band and have been one since before this album. What makes Joy Division special is the music, of course, but Ian, because of what he delivers. And two particular lyrics here really stand out as he finds a way to describe, you know, depression. And so it basically says, just for a moment, I thought I got my way. Destiny unfolded, watched it slip away. And that is perfect. You know, it's that doom that you always feel when you're depressed. And then the next one is then let's take a ride out and see what we can find. Valueless collection of hopes and past desires. This is a guy that's just out of time. You know, he can't find anything that's worthwhile. I mean, his band is blowing up. They're about to go on a tour of the U.S., and these are the lyrics that he's writing. And he's delivering depression in a way that is just heavy and it's just so good. I really think this is such a great song for these guys. Policy of Truth. This was really tough round for me. A really, really tough round. I love the simulated slide guitar. It kind of takes us back to earlier in the album with Personal Jesus. And this is so Depeche Mode, and the album is... The one thing I do think about this album is, as it's gotten further from being a relevant album, it has got kind of drawn back into the pack from when it kind of stood out, in the early 90s. Like, that's when really is like maybe the pinnacle of this sound. But I don't know if that's necessarily true, because there's a lot of similarities between it and other things. And the separation I think that was there has kind of faded over time. And just for that reason, I took a really good Depeche Mode song, and I made it subordinate to Joy Division. So Joy Division 10-9 for me. Todd, what did you do in round 7?
All right. I like the Policy of Truth. It's interesting because it's like another cool kind of bluesy riff. It's very similar, like, to Personal Jesus kind of in that way. There's a driving beat to it, but then it's starting to get a little bit samey as well. The theme is super interesting. It's like you're confessing to something and making it somebody else's burden, so it's not like confession is relief. It's like confession is like, you should have just kept that to yourself, man, and so it's a cool theme, and that stands out from the album, where the other thing is like, let's just be mindless apes and give in to temptation no matter what, and then this one is like, this was like, oh, okay, maybe there's a consequence. But I felt that it was subordinate to the Joy Division song, 24 Hours. This is like the saddest song ever. It's like an epic of sadness, and it just unfolds like a flower and just keeps going and keeps unfolding, and there's layers and layers, and obviously it's like no future. He looked beyond the day in hand, and there's nothing at all, right? So this is the end, right? And it's just so sad, That's just the despair in the song and the lyrics, of course, like you said, the musicianship is super tight underneath,
Yeah.
And it kind of needs to be, Ian Curtis is like one of those figures like Bill Hicks that everyone in Generation X is kind of like required to worship under penalty of law,
Right.
and and so he's kind of in the zone. It's just so sad, when you hear this, you just think of the pain that he was under while this is going on.
Mike, how did you have round 7? Remember back when you and Todd were agreeing on everything? How did you guys do this round?
Policy of Truth is kind of the number 2 in a 1-2 punch. I've always liked the groove. It's an odd song about how overrated honesty is in a relationship.
Yeah.
To Todd's point before, the whole thing is about, what, if you had just lied, things would be a lot better right now. Not great advice, but certainly not something you find in a pop song. I really like the way they mix the synth sounds in to this. It really sounds much more of a complete song than I think even the last one. I'm pretty sure that's real guitar, at least at the end of the track. I know that Martin Gore can actually play guitar. It's hard to tell if it's guitar or synth, and that's a pretty good job. 24 Hours is a softer Joy Division song, super depressing. You get that distinctive hook bass line that you hear in so many of those other songs. Really drives the song. I kind of felt that the guitar was a little lost in the mix at times, but I also really dug the tempo changes throughout that song. These songs, to use the boxing euphemism, they were just pummeling each other. I mean, this was a round that I had a lot of trouble giving to one song versus the other. This was one of my tougher rounds, and I went back and forth a couple of times. I ended up once again going with Depeche Mode, probably due to familiarity with the song more than anything else. So I went 10-9 Depeche, but not confidently at 10-9.
Yeah, I hear you. Round 8, Blue Dress versus The Eternal. Todd, go ahead and tell us what you think.
Okay, I did not care for Blue Dress, I'm going to have to say. Like, by this time, I'm getting tired of the louche, kind of Dave and Martin. Like, okay, now we're watching a groupie get dressed. We'll write a song about that, I did like the lyrics where it's like, believe just how easy it is to please me. That's another one that's like cheesy, but awesome rock lyrics, like it wouldn't work in any other context. Like, carved in a wall, it would look ridiculous. But if it's for some reason singing it, it sounds awesome. You know, I didn't like the weird kind of grunting things at the end and the little interlude, you know, so not a fan of that song. The Eternal is great. This is sort of, I think, Ian kind of at his most melodic. This is about a mentally disabled boy who was sort of confined to his yard. You know, when Ian was growing up and came back as an adult, and he was still confined to his yard. So that's sort of the metaphor, you know. It just keeps going like a dirge. There's like a pretty piano in it, but it's just, you know, again, it's about being trapped. You know, he's trapped in whatever, his depression or his yard, or trapped in his last day. It's really good. I like how and of course the ending is kind of like the piano's just starting up and then it cuts off. So it gives that sense of going on forever and ever, you know, which matches the song. So I gave this to Joy Division 10-8.
What about you, Mike? How did you see it?
So I don't like Blue Dress. Never did. I'll admit that I skip it sometimes when I'm listening to this album.
For shame.
It's a pervy song. It really is. And I don't have problems with pervy songs when they're admittedly pervy songs and outwardly pervy songs. But this one is like, we're being pervy, but we're trying to put it behind some really cool music and a soft lyric so that you don't know it. Just admit it. I don't dig this song. And The Eternal was definitely a melodic, really great sounding song. More experimental sounds, very early 80s experimental sounds, but I don't think they aged poorly. It certainly doesn't take away from the song. And frankly, given my opinion on Blue Dress, Joy Division could have come in with even less of a song, but they didn't. So I give this to Joy Division 10-9, and barely a 9 for Depeche.
All right. Well, here's how I saw round 8. I struggled with this round, honestly, and not in a good way, because I don't really care for either song. It's the penultimate round. I want to understand what's going on. And there's Dave. He's still in love / lust with someone. You know, is it pervy? Is it a little BDSM-y? Is it a little rock star-ish with a groupie like Todd said? And you're just like, hey, quit trying so hard. Just put that dress on. Do what you're told. We'll all have a good time. I've done this a lot. Quit overthinking this. I'm not a big fan when Dave's tremolo comes in a little too much. And look, his voice is great. He makes a lot of money singing. I don't. So God bless. You got to do what you got to do and don't listen to me. But when the guitar doubles that and it gets tremolo-y, I'm like, oh, that's just a lot here. And it's 6 minutes long. And couldn't we just really fucking get to it already? I just did not like The Eternal very much. Both songs were really slow, and it's like we're resting, waiting for a big build-up. And, you know, is Ian seeing his destiny slip away as he's writing the last 2 songs of his Requiem? I don't know. It's fine, but it's not what makes Joy Division special. And when they do this well, it's way better than this song. For the reason that Joy Division misses at doing what they do well, I penalized them in this round, so I went 10-9 Depeche Mode. All right, we're going to go into the last round. Mike, you're going to start us off, so Todd can go last. So, Mike, we've got The Decades versus Clean. How'd you do it?
Clean, I've spent time trying to figure this song out. I do dig the very beginning of this song. I knew I heard it somewhere, and I read from Gore himself that they were kind of aping Pink Floyd's One of These Days, the bass line at the beginning of the song. I'm like, that's where I've heard it. They intentionally aped at the beginning of the song there. I always thought it was about Dave's very public drug habit, but the lyrics don't make it obvious. I still think it's about drugs and getting clean off of drugs. I think it's a strong close for this album. They kind of have that epicness, synth epicness anyways. It sounds like a song that they want to play in a stadium. But it's got a good, strong driving beat, and it's a non-single that I always listen to when I'm dialing up Depeche. Decades has a very different sound, I think, than anything else on the album. Very much more synth-driven than any other song, sounding a lot more like New Order than Joy Division. The song feels a little bit disjointed, and the singing, the instrumentation is amazing. Curtis just sounded a little bit off. I don't know if this is the last song that they recorded, I couldn't find a whole lot more info on it, but it kind of felt like it, at least. Good way to end the album, especially knowing what happens next. I went back and forth about 4 or 5 times on scoring, and in the end, I really liked both songs equally. I could not break the tie. I couldn't find flaws in one song.
You're gonna do it, aren't you?
I'm giving this one a tie.
Oh my God.
Wow. 10-10.
10-10. Way to be decisive. No, I'm giving you a shit, man. That was a hard round for sure.
Dude, I gave it to each song twice.
Okay.
I came back and said, I can't do this.
Well, all right. Yeah, go with your first instinct. Anyhow, round 9 for me, the Decades. Here's the deal. Clean is the much catchier song, but Joy Division has the bigger influence. You know, this is the Sensei taking on the Prodigy in the ring. And as great as Depeche Mode is, there's just not enough separation between them and the masters. So that's the bottom line for me. And as we close out these songs, neither one of these bands really gives me something special. What I really wanted to hear from Joy Division at the end was Transmission. I love that song. I would love to have been his last moment in recorded music. You know, it was just, you know, like, I'm released, I'm going to dance for the radio. That would have been great for me. But we didn't get that. We got The Decades, which is a cool song. But that's just it. Man, I just was left, well, like everybody else. I mean, you know, the guy hangs himself, and we're all like, oh, him and Bill Hicks. Damn it, got to respect those guys.
He got the cancer. He didn't hang himself.
yeah, but he's dead, though.
Yeah, he's dead.
And then Clean is look, like you said, Mike, it's a really good Joy Division song. It's got Joy Division bits and pieces all over it, and that really cinched it. It's like, you know, there's just Joy Division brought it, and Depeche Mode, with one of their best albums, wasn't able to smash them, so this had to go for me 10-9 to Joy Division. Todd, close us out. How did we do?
All right. So I agree. I think both of these songs are not the strongest on the album or the strongest from the bands. I feel like they're trying to thematically wrap up the album, right? So, you know, Violators about, you know, decadence, giving in to temptation, giving in. So now it's like the last one's, haha, I'm clean, you know, look at that. The One of These Days sample is super cool. I don't know if it's a sample or they're reproducing that bouncy bass, but it's super cool, you know, but he's trying a little bit hard to convince me, you know, that he's clean or quitting drugs, you know. It's like, right. like that old joke about, you know, it's easy to quit. I've done it hundreds of times. You know? The Decade song is trying to wrap everything up. It's like, you know, the first song's like, come inside and see the atrocity exhibition, you know, Ian's going to turn himself inside out. And so now it's like, you know, using kind of war as a metaphor for trauma and PTSD and, you know, things that you've been through. So this is like capping that theme with like, haha, now you saw everything in the atrocity expedition and now you're completely screwed up from it. And so I feel like, you know, I see that lyrically and I see that, you know, kind of thematically, but then I feel like the music kind of subordinate to that, you know? And so I don't think either one is super strong. You know, I give it to Joy Division just slightly, 10-9.
Wow. Well, that gets us through the last round. So let's see how we did. Mike, break down the scorecard for us.
All right. So we have a split decision. But Joy Division comes out 2 judges to 1 in a very tight score. So Pete and Todd, you both gave Joy Division 86. Pete gave Depeche 85. Todd gave Depeche 84. I went in the other direction by 1 point and gave the fight to Depeche 86 to Joy Division 85. So our total tally is 257 to 255.
Wait, didn't you give one song an 8?
You did.
I did.
Yeah.
But I ended with a tie.
Because he's a coward.
Oh, I see. Got it. Sorry.
And then Todd, you had a knockdown as well in policy.
Yeah, Todd, you had a
I did.
In a blue dress. That's right. Yeah.
I'm going to start off by complimenting the judges this week. They really brought their A game and did what I think was one of the best jobs breaking down an album fight to date, because this one was so close and so hard to score. Let's look at the numbers and see what went down. We have on the official cards a 257 to 255 split decision for Joy Division. Averaging the numbers, that is an 85.67 to 85 fight. Essentially just a touch above a draw. When you look at all the unofficial cards, you end up with a full-on 683 to 683 draw. The unofficial cards showing a little more favor on average to Depeche Mode. So what put Closer over the edge for Joy Division? Both albums had a knockdown apiece, so that is even. The difference was in the rounds to win. I had those as 2, 4, and 8 for Closer, and 3, 6, and 7 for Violator. No overlapping rounds this week. Of the 9 potential points, Joy Division got 5, and Depeche Mode only secured 4. Also of note, round 2 was the only unanimous round, and that was one of the rounds to win for Closer, which they did. Also, 2 of the 3 judges scored it 5 rounds to 4. If you'll remember, that was the pre-fight prediction. And the third, Mike, who's a coward, gave it 4 to 4 to 1 tied round. So it was a squeaker, and honestly, one of the better fights we've had, and one of the hardest ones to score. I had it going back and forth. I wasn't terribly sure who I'd have win on my card myself. Now, if you've listened or talked to me about music, you know I'm a fan of historical perspective, where a band falls in the history of rock and roll. Joy Division, while not as well known, is a vitally important band, and one I hope more people will give a chance to at least learn a little more about. Which made me very happy to hear a mention of the movie 24-Hour Party People. While not specifically about Joy Division, they do play an important part in it. It's a fun, relatively light movie that deals with factory records and the Manchester music scene of the late 70s into the 90s. It's fantastic. More specific to Joy Division is a small movie called Control that deals with the short life of the band and, sadly, of the lead singer Ian Curtis. This one is dark and sad and fascinating as it delves into the depression and eventual death of their lead singer. It's shot in black and white, which is really the only way I think you can capture the proper mood. It's a little harder to find, but please go find this movie. Control, go find it. Also, I posted an old Spotify playlist of mine that includes Joy Division and many of its contemporaries. It's a good starter course in what some people call darkwave music. Later today, I'm going to post a Spotify playlist of modern bands that claim Joy Division as a major influence. Some bands are well known, some not so much, but there is some great stuff in there. If you think, I don't know if I like Joy Division or not, but hey, I might like this over here. You can find something great in there. If people enjoy these, I'll try to throw some similar playlists out for future album fights to give some of that historical perspective. Hope you enjoy.
Yeah, and then as we look across all the other judges, I'm noticing that there's no unanimous round. Now, we have a lot of... Oh, no, actually there is. Isolation versus Sweetest Perfection. That was the one unanimous round, and that's against a whole bunch of judges. So
Nope.
Oh, you're right. Brian fucked it up. Way to go,
Brian gave it to Sweetest Perfection.
Wait, hold on. Did he really? God dang it, Brian. What are you doing?
Yeah, let me see. There is...
Ruining it.
There is not a single. The last round is pretty close. Only one person gave it to Clean.
Yeah, Scott Pelkey. Yeah. Either way, though, gents, let me do the disclaimer. These guys are in the ring because we love this music. If you couldn't tell, it's really influential in our lives. We love what Joy Division has given us and all of the bands that have taken inspiration from them and given us again. And of course, we love Dave and the boys over there in Depeche Mode because Dave tries to get us laid and everybody likes that. So if you think that we're being nitpicky and unfair, yes, and we admit our failing that this is a kooky format, and we absolutely want you guys to buy this music and enjoy it and spin it on Spotify. And listen, we have playlists for every show. You should definitely go out and do it. Score along, argue along. If the fight is past and you come and find this thing 2 years from now, absolutely jump in and call Mike a coward for picking a tie in the last round, or claim that I am wrong. Be nice to Todd because he's our guest. But
yes.
Man, thanks. And I love doing these things with you guys. I mean, Todd, you've done 2 of them now. You're going to be an official host on one. I think we're working on one, aren't we?
I have an idea for one. I don't know if you want me to say it. But
Yeah, say it. Let's hear it.
So I was thinking the Kinks, Lola versus Power Man versus the Clash's first album.
Oh my gosh, the Clash.
Yeah,
that
The
is
Clash versus the Kinks.
One's got 13 and one's got 14.
Yeah, but there's some short songs
so
in
I
there.
don't know.
I can help you with that.
Yeah, Mike, will you fix that card up for us when you get a chance?
Yeah, absolutely. Just shoot me an email.
I will. Yeah, thank you, and thank you, Mike, for staying up late with us. I know you got done at work and you squeezed this in, so I appreciate you doing that and for all the help you do, because you are officially a producer of the AlbumFIght episodes. So thank you for all the hard work you do as well.
Oh, my pleasure. I love the format. I love doing these, and anytime you need a guest host, guest judge, you know my number, man.
I do. All right, fellas. Well, thank you very much. The Break It Down show brings you album fights, and they're so fucking good. So make sure you guys check it out and let me know what fights you want to hear. We'll try to get them all done. All right. Thanks, everybody.